Hello everyone. First of all, I want to thank the authorities of the Liberal Party, especially Flávio Bolsonaro, for inviting me to participate in this important event in the face of Brazil's commissions. It is a great pleasure for me to be in this country, among those who share my passion for the ideas of freedom, and that is especially relevant in times like this, when a whole nation debates between the release or extension of its subjugation to the left, That is why it is important that we have very clear the terms of this battle and what is at stake. Because what is decided in the short time in the polls will undoubtedly have ramifications in the coming decades. You should not choose only for yourselves, but for the coming generations, for a history whose verdict sooner or later will be won and will not be forgiven. Long lies. Long lie freedom, Carajo. Carajo. I want to share with you some words that, if God permits, that will help to tilt the balance in favor of good, encouraging you to persistently pursue the change you are seeking. We leave the arena of freedom for the end. That is how we do it with everything. I have some things that I would like to convey to you. Since I assumed the presidency of the Argentine Republic, I've been insisting on a particular idea. We Argentines are prophets of a dystopian future. We have lived the consequences of taking the path of socialism to the end. And we have seen how our nation, being a global power, the shitty leftists have sunk us into poverty. And because we have suffered, we do not want others to suffer. That is why part of our mission as a government is to warn the other nations to change in time and prevent social and economic tragedies, such as the Argentine one or even worse. We have done so in visits to other countries, in international forums and organizations, and wherever we have had the opportunity, and we will continue to do so. We will continue to offer our testimony everywhere against the lies of socialism. When we came to power, our country was heading to a new hyperinflation, the third in its history. Socialism, that is to say, the Argentine version of the Presidium. Socialism had devoured almost all the stocks in its reach to sustain an economic and political model of created interests, a system that was enemy of the basic principles of natural law and the most elementary notions of economics. In fact, it was fighting with reality itself, and that was leading us to a terminal crisis, undoubtedly the worst we have ever seen. The Argentines had let themselves be enchanted by the sirens of socialism in the 21st century. They had made them believe, by force of propaganda, that the fiscal deficit did not matter, or that it was even beneficial, that the infinite regulations exist to protect us, that the state could replace the entrepreneurial spirit of a whole country, that wealth could be distributed before it was created. All those false promises ended up in the same way, with more poverty, more fiscal deficit, more inflation, and an endless number of laws and regulations that complicate the lives of millions of people. Does it work now? It works in use. Hello, Hunter. Hey, Dave, hey. Hey, guys, turn off the microphone, yeah. Please. Hello. Hey, who sent these microphones to play? Deceive. Sell to finance an insatiable tax. The private savings rating first. And as that did not satisfy them, their monetary stability was eaten, financing the tax deficit with emissions. I am talking about a government that issued the equivalent of 13 points of the GDP in 1 year to try to win an election, while it had a neighbor who got involved in Argentina's politics. They tried to twist history in favor of the shitty leftists. I mean, I'm talking about the same person who put the opposition in jail just for being the opposition. And to justify these advances on property rights, they destroyed the basic moral notions and the education that supported them, anticipating strong criticism from our Western historical allies for going on this self-destructive path. They broke the Argentine position and aligned us with dictatorships and terrorists from various parts of the world. Thus, they left us poor and alone in a world that changes every day at more dizzying speeds, where every day lost under the old model left us more and more behind. They had condemned us to ruin, only to avoid giving up their positions of privilege. Families and companies could not plan their future. The young people were convinced that their only project of life was to emigrate or give in to poverty. Inflation had shaped the psychology of our fellow citizens, forcing them to live in increasingly narrow temporary horizons, resigning in no long time for the subsistence of day to day. Indeed, they were pushing the Argentines towards growing levels of barbarism and uncertainty. That is the inheritance they left us. They make a whole generation believe that the future was somewhere else, that it did not exist directly. All this is simple. It is not about personal decisions, but about the incentives that arise when you try to go against the self-evident truths of human nature in the name of power. Because when you are enraged by the basic principles of humanity, you fight with reality itself, and you have to invent new patches every day so that reality does not take them. That is why the path to socialism is always and everywhere the path to totalitarianism, because the socialist has to use all the means at his disposal to deny a reality that proves that his ideas are false, harmful and destructive for any nation. And so they use all the coercive tools of the state for that. I think you are aware of that kind of thing here. In a very similar way to the Greek myth of the fact of progress, the left pretends extreme conformity to an anti-human system that exists as a role in extreme and illusory equality. That is, a situation where the individual must break to fit. Like the guests of this Greek passage, who were stretched or mutilated according to the needs of their host. What I want to tell you is that Brazil has not yet experienced the most nefarious and profound consequences of this model, but it can experience them if it does not turn its back on Timon. We trust in you, Flavio, to be able to stop the socialist garbage. The socialism of the 21st century has made strong roots in this country, being in the infamous San Pablo Forum founded by Lula da Silva and Fidel Castro, a key national network for the dissemination of communism on the continent. One thing is clear. The political and theoretical lines are the same. Only in each country they operate with their own restrictions on their territories and its oppositions, that is, different particular manifestations of a universal and timeless phenomenon, a corruption that exists since man is man, since Cain killed his brother Abel. Their envy and resentment as a philosophy, mass under the flag of inequality and solidarity. And this brings us nothing but robbery as a political system. It leads to robbery as a political system. That is why it does not surprise you that there will always be socialists on the side of thieves, because socialists are thieves. And as I said before, this vision of the world cannot tolerate to have in front of themselves those who are ordering their nations according to the ideals of freedom and serve as an inverted mirror of their lies. In other words, they do not have the right to say that they do not have the right to say that they do not have the right to say that they do not have the right. In other words, we are showing them every day that their system is not only inefficient, but it is deeply unfair. That is why every day that passes, their desperation increases. They cannot allow their communities to experience a prosperous life, freedom, and no longer need the limousine of politics. Know that there is anyone by their side who enjoys the honey of human freedom. That is why today Latin American socialism is being eradicated. Election after election. Argentina, Colombia, Peru, Chile, Ecuador. And let us hope that in October Brazil liberal will also be. Because the counterexamples are powerful. And the change Argentina is living is felt at the regional level, as well as in the rest of the world. There are also other nations that are waking up. Little by little the veil is lifting. However, it is also important to remember that in this country, little by little the veil is lifting. However, this ideology still clings to Brazil, in the hands of one of its main promoters and longer-term exponents. And for this reason, in the face of isolation and threat, they deepen their populist model. We witnessed what socialism has been capable of when it has been cornered. We know what we are talking about. When its privileges are at stake, there is nothing that they are willing to stop at. And the future of all Brazilians will suffer for it. Therefore, do not let the future be stolen by the hands of socialist thieves. Its strategy is the same everywhere. Destroying public accounts to win elections. Promising solutions as easy and immediate as artificial ones. A strategy that we know firsthand and have inherited the so-called Plan Platita. Its strategy is the same everywhere. Destroying public accounts to win elections. And we have inherited the so-called Plan Platita. The plan is simple. More expenses financed with more debt. More taxes or, what is worse, more monetary emissions and more inflation. It is now a consequence for the future. The perfect recipe for disaster. This modus operandi is the same everywhere, causing an economic imbalance. The objective of cortoplacista is to retain votes, so as not to lose power in the following elections. Then, when they lose, assume the right. That must solve all these problems. While the very left that cause it blames. If they win, they win. And if they lose too. Thank you. There are plenty of examples. Just look at what happens in Bolivia, Chile, Ecuador, Colombia. That was the tragedy of socialism in the 21st century. It never gave its successes. A country ready to keep growing. On the contrary, it always left them the same backpack. A oversized state, a destroyed economy, a weak currency, and a society exhausted from being the laboratory of the socialist experiment. And when the movement arrives to order that scourge, it is the ones who caused it, the ones who denounce the cost of correcting it. So sharpen the scissors to cut the theft of all socialist criminals. Last year, in the face of the intermediate elections in Argentina, the Congress came to the extreme of trying 7 political trials and sending multiple breaking laws to end the fiscal balance. They sought at all costs to have a creep, a state causing panic in the market and causing a massive race against the dollar. At the time of trying to stay in power or recover lost privileges, they really do not know the limits. Thus, today Brazil is on its way to a debt crisis, derived from the fact that Lula did not make the fiscal adjustment that the situation demanded, and now it is getting worse. To have chances to win, that is, the scourge sooner or later is paid, and let's hope that the one who caused it pays by losing in the polls in October. They've low. The power has retained, taking pages of the disaster book that Kirchnerism wrote in Argentina. If in Argentina we have as an economic factor what we call the Eucharist, here in Brazil today they have the Lula risk, and it is clearly reflected in the stock market. But why is Lula threatened? Because there is someone who, as happened in Argentina, is willing to face it and become the voice of that silent majority that has already suffered abuses. I speak of Flávio Bolsonaro, son of my great friend, the former President Jair Bolsonaro. Dulo. To top it all off, the garbage come did not allow me to visit my friend, unjustly imprisoned, when I know that Lula got tired of receiving leaders from abroad when he was in prison. Among them, the defaced President of Argentina, Alberto Fernandez. This is nothing more than a clear example of the injustice of his detention and his clear revengeful character. Deja, I embrace you at the distance, that what the bureaucrats are preventing today will soon come true, and we will again hide. Jair Bolsonaro. That is why I consider Flávio the person who can stop Lula and face a real change for all Brazilians. Today, Brazil can join in the regional transformation of which we have witnessed in recent years, which will make Latin America a region synonymous with progress and not of romantic misery under the guise of magical realism. I firmly believe that there is no one else capable of determining Lula's risk over Brazil as a sword of Damocles, and I know that there is no one else with the strength to face the criminal organizations and cartels of drug trafficking that have so many neighborhoods, communities, and even cities full of hostility. Only someone with an iron will can face them, because it is not easy to carry on such a battle. And in that I fully trust my friend Flávio Bolsonaro. We have already tested the guarantee. We have already tested the patience and the mercy of those who commit crimes. And each and every one of these socialist strategies has failed. That is why the Brazilians already know that there is only one successful formula to eradicate crime, and it is the one who does it who pays it. We have already demonstrated that all this is possible in Argentina. We've demonstrated that crime can be reduced and the public order can be recovered if a firm hand is held and the one who committed crime is punished. We have demonstrated that a state can be brutally crushed without citizens losing their services, because populism fails it with inefficient employees. And as we have achieved in Argentina, I trust that Brazil will once again stand up, because that is what Flávio represents. By opting for the city of freedom, they will witness prosperity at the height of Brazil. And when they finally begin to stand up, you will never for sure, because one by one, they see represent progress at the international level or start their defamation campaigns. Those who have never presented too much attention, while they slowly sink into decline, suddenly they will come into force to reproach all their real or invented failures when they begin to show their heads. They saw it 4 years ago in the last presidential elections, and they will see it again. Get ready, because the leftists have no problem playing dirty. They're ready for a great battle. The Argentinians have been living in their own flesh for a long time. They liked us more when we were the best students of progressivism, when we were countries. We were the laboratory of delusional policies, and when our government embraced models of material and spiritual decline, they wanted us to accept without joking what the local employees said about us. They wanted us to be ashamed of our history and throw our proxies to the trash. They wanted us to continue being vanguard of the West of the worst. All this operation has the purpose of breaking the rules of progressivism to make them more docile. In the face of progressivism, a people convinced of the injustice of their past ends up believing that they need these false priests of a religion without God to redeem it. They turn guilt into a political tool. They use shame as an instrument of domination. The inside and the outside, all progressivists, are part of the same project. They don't want representatives of a dignified misery relegated to the role of a shameless pack, or relevance of a world order that we don't choose. They don't want Argentina, Brazil, Peru, Colombia, or any country in the American continent to be big, strong, or prosperous. And I say the progressivists, because this attack is systematic against Argentina, and the same that Brazil experiences when it begins to rise does not come from conservatives or classic liberals or anything like that. It comes exclusively from the radical left in all its expressions. If you check the data of the recent anti-Argentina campaign, the place where more attacks came from Brazil, and is not from the Brazilians, it's from the progressivist, the radicalist. They are the ones who need us, quiet and obedient, to continue imposing their anti-human agendas. But our national anthem demands something else from us. It makes us swear to die with glory before living on our knees. And that spirit provokes a gesture that we are giving from the Argentine national government, and what I hope that the Brazilians can also take forwards in these coming years. That's why I want to tell you that when the unfounded critics accuse you of the worst crimes and the worst slanders, do not fear. Do not lower your heads. I formerly said, do not give in to evil. Fight with much more courage. When they attack, do not be ashamed to be who you are. It is the perfect evidence of what you are doing. It is working, and that the path is the right one. As a saying goes, letter and censure signal that we ride. That's why I want to tell you that what you have in front of you is clear. And although the road is hard, and the enemies to the right, and especially sinister, want to destroy them, freedom is above all. Finally, for this 4th of October, out to the polls, for the future, for Brazil, all with faith, all the apparatus of the state, all the support of the foreign media, and the elites will never be able to count with the true power, because the triumph in the battle does not depend on the number of soldiers, but on the forces that come from the sky. That's why, let's go Flavio, let's go forward. Make Brazil great again. May God bless you all. May the forces of heaven be with you, and long life freedom. Long life freedom.